Imagine standing on a freezing, really rugged Scottish hillside, right? It's pouring rain.
Sounds miserable.
Oh, totally. And your only coworker is like a mile away, completely out of earshot.
Wow.
Yeah. And you have to rely entirely on their independent logic to manage this massive flock of really erratic, stubborn sheep. You can't micromanage them. You can't shout commands.
Because it wouldn't hear you anyway.
Exactly. You simply have to trust that their brain is processing the terrain, the weather, and the livestock way faster than you ever could.
That is an intense scenario.
It is. And welcome to a brand new deep dive. Today, we are looking at the dog built for that exact job, the Border Collie.
A fascinating animal.
Truly. And for those of you listening, whether you are actively thinking about sharing your home with one of these dogs or, you are just insanely curious about the extremes of animal psychology and selective breeding, our mission today is to completely reframe how you look at this famous breed.
Right, because we aren't looking at a normal pet here. We really aren't.
Yeah. No, we are looking at a highly specialized, fiercely intelligent working machine that is different from the rest of the canine world, not just in degree, but in kind.
And to understand that machine, we really have to trace its engineering back to the source.
Yeah.
We are going to deconstruct their roots in that unforgiving border region of the British Isles, dive deep into the intense loophole-finding psychology of a working dog, and examine the physical physiology that allows them to just run all day.
And ultimately figure out what it genuinely takes to live alongside one of these animals for well over a decade.
Because it takes a lot.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly understand why a modern Border Collie acts the way it does in, say, your suburban living room,
Right.
you cannot just look at the dog sitting in front of you.
No, you have to travel back in time to the exact environment that forged them.
Right. And the very name, Border Collie, kind of tells you exactly where the story begins.
It does. They originate from that really harsh border region between England and Scotland.
Hence the name. And the breed, as we know it today, was shaped by one uncompromising purpose, which was herding sheep on these rugged hill farms.
And we really need to clarify the mechanics of what herding actually meant for these early shepherds. Because this wasn't a hobby.
No, it was a brutal economic necessity.
Exactly. A single dog was out there doing the work of 10 men across massive, dangerous terrain. So the requirement for extreme independence was paramount.
Which makes sense, given the distance.
Right. When a dog is a mile away and entirely out of sight of his handler, it just cannot rely on constant, micromanaged whistle commands. It has to make its own decision.
It has to, read the room, right? But the room is a valley of sheep.
Yes. It has to read the microscopic body language of 100 sheep, calculate the topography of a steep ravine, anticipate which way the flock is going to break, and then execute a maneuver to control them.
All in real time.
All in real time, based on its own internal logic.
Which is mind-blowing. And that brings us to the foundation of the modern breed. Specifically, a dog named Old Hemp.
Ah, yes, Old Hemp.
Yeah, the sources point to this one sire, born in Northumberland way back in 1893, as basically the blueprint for the Border Collie we know today.
He changed everything.
He really did. Because before Old Hemp, herding dogs were often, chaotic. They ran around, barking frantically, physically nipping, and really stressing the livestock out.
Which is counterproductive if you want calm sheep.
Exactly. But Old Hemp pioneered something revolutionary. It was this completely calm, silent, and incredibly intense style of herding. He controlled the sheep not through noise, but through sheer body pressure and his gaze.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is that herding professionals and canine behaviorists refer to this as the eye.
It's like a canine Jedi mind trick.
It really is. And to understand the mechanism behind the eye, you have to look at canine evolutionary biology.
Okay, how so?
Well, when a wolf hunts, there is a specific predatory motor sequence. It goes orient, eye, stalk, chase, grab, bite, kill.
Okay, orient, eye, stalk, chase, grab, bite, kill.
Got it. Right, so what the early breeders did with the Border Collie, which really culminated in Old Hemp, was genetically suppress the grab, bite, and kill instincts.
Oh, wow. So they just edited out the end of the sequence.
Exactly. While taking the eye and the stalk parts and just dialing them up to an absolute 11.
That is wild.
It's a modified predatory instinct. They use this intense, unblinking stare of a predator locking onto prey to exert spatial pressure on the sheep. So they move them without ever actually causing a panic.
I have seen this in person, And it is startling. I mean, they lower their head, their shoulder blades peak, they lock eyes, and it is almost like they are projecting pure force of will into the animal across from them.
It's pure focus.
Yeah. And the sources note that if you have ever seen a border collie lock eyes with a tennis ball, or frankly, even a toddler running across a lawn, you have seen this exact 19th century historical trait in action.
As stalk and stare, it's undeniable.
But wait, if they were intentionally bred for generations to work completely independently, out of sight of their human, making their own calls, doesn't that just make them incredibly stubborn in a living room?
That's a really common assumption.
Right. Because if they think they know better than you, why would they ever listen?
Well, what's fascinating here is that what we routinely interpret as stubbornness in other dogs is actually a deeply ingrained problem-solving mechanism in the Border Collie.
Okay, so it's not them just blowing you off.
Not at all. They aren't ignoring you because they are obstinate. They are constantly evaluating the environment to find the most efficient solution to a puzzle.
Huh.
Think about it. On a hillside, if a sheep broke away from the flock, the dog couldn't just wait for a whistle. It had to act instantly.
Right, they had to be proactive.
Exactly. That independence is a manifestation of supreme intelligence and environmental awareness. The catch is that in a modern setting, they require a sense of purposeful work.
Or what happened?
Or that exact same problem-solving drive will turn entirely inward and manifest as really destructive behavior.
Oh, boy. And that brings us perfectly to the next major piece of the puzzle, which is the double-edged sword of intelligence.
The big brain.
Yeah, the big brain, because that historical need for independent problem solving directly created their massive brain power.
It did.
The sources note that working dog professionals and canine researchers widely regard the Border Collie as one of the most trainable and cognitively capable breeds on Earth.
Absolutely.
But we have to make a vital distinction here between being smart and being trainable.
Yes, very different things.
Right, because a dog can be smart enough to figure out how to, open your refrigerator to steal a roast, but that doesn't mean it's going to listen to you when you tell it to sit.
That's just being clever.
Oh.
But Border Collies possess both raw intelligence and extreme trainability, which is a really rare combination.
How does that actually look from a scientific standpoint?
Well, from a cognitive science perspective, they learn commands at an astonishing rate. But more importantly, they can generalize concepts.
Generalized concepts? What do you mean?
So, if you teach a standard breed a rule in the kitchen, they might not understand that the exact same rule applies in the backyard.
Oh, like the context confuses them.
Right. But a Border Collie abstracts the rule and applies it universally. They retain knowledge long term.
That sounds amazing, though.
It is, but the immense danger of this cognitive capacity is their unparalleled pattern recognition. They understand cause and effect on a level most domestic animals simply do not possess.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because reading the sources, raising a Border Collie sounds less like training a dog and more like raising a gifted teenager who is constantly looking for flaws in your logic.
That is a very accurate comparison.
Or maybe like a hacker looking for a backdoor in your firewall.
Yes. If you're inconsistent, they will find the loophole.
So, like, if you tell them to stay on their bed, but you let them break the stay early 3 times out of 10 because you were distracted.
They aren't just getting confused.
Right. They have calculated the mathematical odds of you actually enforcing the rule today, and they will exploit that margin of error.
They absolutely, and this raises an important question for anyone listening who might be considering bringing one of these dogs into their home.
Which is?
Are you prepared for the immense responsibility of being perfectly consistent?
Wow. Perfectly consistent.
Because if a human is inconsistent, or even just predictable in the wrong ways, you will inevitably end up being the one who is trained by the dog.
Oh, man. They reverse engineer you.
They do. They will figure out exactly which behaviors, like a whine, a nudge, a very specific stare, trigger you to give them attention or open the back door.
That is honestly a little intimidating.
It is. Their cognitive capability demands a true working partnership. You aren't just issuing casual commands to a pet. You are engaging in a constant, high-level negotiation with an intellect that is always analyzing your habits.
And you cannot house a genius-level intellect in a stagnant body.
No, you cannot.
The massive brain power we just discussed requires an equally massive physical outlet. So let's break down the energy equation and what this lifestyle actually demands in the modern world.
This is where a lot of people struggle.
Yeah, because the energy level of a Border Collie is genuinely in an entirely different category from a standard house pet. We are talking about an animal bred to work 8 to 10 hours a day on a steep hillside.
And the physiology behind that cardiovascular endurance is staggering.
How so? Like, mechanically?
Well, their bodies are engineered to process oxygen and clear lactic acid at rates that allow them to sprint up rocky inclines, pause, and sprint again hour after hour.
That's like an elite athlete.
Exactly. Plus, they possess a mental stamina that allows them to maintain intense focus despite absolute physical exhaustion.
Okay, to put that in perspective for you listening, leaving a border collie alone in a suburban backyard for 8 hours while you go to work is basically like buying a Formula One Ferrari and only driving it in a school zone.
That's a perfect analogy.
It is a fundamental mismatch of engineering and environment. A dog without an outlet for that kind of extreme drive is not going to just quietly accept its fate and take a nap.
Oh, no.
No, it is going to redesign your landscaping, peel up your linoleum, or literally eat your drywall.
Which dictates a very specific ideal owner profile.
Mhm.
This breed demands an active, engaged person who is actively seeking a working partnership.
They need a job.
They desperately need a job. They need structured, complex training. Now, that could be actual livestock herding, but for most people, it means modern equivalents.
Like agility courses and stuff.
Yeah, complex agility courses, fly ball, competitive obedience, or even advanced trick training that challenges their mind. First-time dog owners often find this level of required engagement entirely overwhelming because, honestly, it is a part-time job.
I can imagine. But let me push back on the family dog image, though.
Way.
Because people see these brilliant dogs on television or in movies, and they love the idea of a smart, loyal companion playing with their kids in the yard. But the sources specifically mention that this very strong herding instinct we've been talking about can create major friction in a family environment.
It definitely can.
Like, they might try to herd small, fast-moving children by circling them, cutting off their path, or even nipping at their heels. Is a border collie just too risky for an average family with young, unpredictable kids?
It is a critical concern, and it requires intense management. But we have to make a very clear distinction here. Heel nipping in a border collie is instinct. It is not malice or aggression.
It goes back to that motor sequence.
Exactly. Remember that modified predatory sequence? Fast, erratic movement from a toddler triggers the exact same spatial control instinct as an escaping sheep.
So the dog just thinks, oh no, a sheep is getting away, I better contain it.
Precisely. The dog is trying to control the movement of the flock. So early, broad socialization is the ultimate key to mitigating these tensions.
How do you do that with a puppy?
You have to expose a border collie puppy to a wide variety of sounds, chaotic environments, and unpredictable movements. And you have to explicitly teach them how to appropriately channel that herding drive so they don't apply it to the neighborhood toddlers.
Right. And the sources also point out that their social style reflects their working past.
Yes, it does.
They tend to be aloof or reserved with strangers. They aren't golden retrievers rushing up to lick the mailman.
No, they are much more analytical.
They take their time analyzing new people to decide how they fit into the environment. And while they can coexist with other pets, that same intense predatory motor sequence means they often have a very high prey drive toward cats or small animals.
And everything comes back to giving the dog a complex job.
Right, an outlet.
If their mental and physical energy is fulfilled through structured work, taking that 8 to 10 hour hillside endurance and channeling it into daily rigorous agility training, they are significantly less likely to try and herd the family cat or nip at children.
Because they're tired.
Well, tired, but also fulfilled. It is about redirection. You cannot extinguish an instinct that took hundreds of years to build, but you can give it an appropriate outlet.
That makes total sense. So we have this highly intelligent, fiercely energetic brain and a demanding social profile. Let's look at the actual hardware that houses this engine.
The physical dog.
Yeah, because they are uniquely adapted physically for this exact lifestyle. We've established they aren't built for the couch, but what does an animal engineered for endless endurance actually look like?
Physically, they are medium-sized dogs, and there is a very deliberate physical logic to this.
Okay, break it down.
Males typically stand between 19 and 22 inches at the shoulder and weigh anywhere from 30 to 55 pounds, with females generally being slightly smaller.
So they're pretty lean.
Very lean. They're designed entirely for agility and stamina, not for bulk.
Why is that?
Well, if a dog is too heavy, the impact of running down rocky ravines will literally destroy their joints in a matter of months.
Oh, that makes sense. Gravity is not their friend if they're heavy.
Right. But conversely, if they are too small, A stubborn you will simply bully them or trample them.
So there's a Goldilocks zone.
Exactly. The 40-pound range is the mathematical sweet spot for canine endurance on rugged terrain.
They aren't built like a bulldog. They are built like marathon runners.
Yes.
And their coats perfectly reflect the harsh, freezing environment they came from. The sources detail two main variations, right? The rough coat, which is longer and feathered around the chest and legs, and the smooth coat, which is shorter.
Right.
But regardless of length, both are double-coated. They have a soft, dense undercoat for insulation against freezing rain, and a coarser outer coat to repel water and dirt.
And the practical reality of a dense double coat designed to survive a Scottish winter is that they shed
Oh, yeah.
considerably and constantly.
So what does this all mean? It means you better invest heavily in industrial-grade lint rollers if you own one.
You really do.
But beyond the shedding, they're visually striking dogs. A lot of people just picture the classic black and white dog with the white blaze down the nose, but they actually come in a massive variety of colors.
A huge variety.
You have blue merle, red and white, sable, tricolor. And their eyes are fascinating. They can be dark brown, striking amber, icy blue, or they can even have heterochromia.
Which is one eye of one color and one of another.
Yeah. And the sources note that heterochromia is completely healthy and normal for the breed.
If we connect this sheer physical variety back to the bigger picture, it makes perfect sense.
How so?
The shepherds in the 19th century did not care in the slightest if the dog was black, red, or had two different colored eyes.
They weren't entering them in a beauty pageant.
Exactly. They weren't breeding for a dog show. They were breeding for survival and utility. They only cared if the dog could work. Function absolutely dictated form.
Right.
And that relentless focus on functional design over aesthetics gives the Border Collie a very robust, healthy lifespan, typically ranging from 12 to 15 years.
15 years is a massive commitment.
It really is.
It is a long haul to manage an athlete of this caliber. And actually, the source material highlighted a modern tool to help manage the logistics of that commitment. It's an app called Vital Pet.
Yes.
Yeah, it was mentioned specifically as a way to track the massive data footprint of a 15-year relationship with a high-octane dog. You know, keeping organized, accessible records of complex vaccination schedules, lab results, and long-term weight history.
Which is super helpful. But I should add, because the sources strictly noted this app is purely an organizational tool.
Right, definitely.
It does not diagnose, treat, or in any way replace the care of a licensed veterinarian.
No, absolutely not. It's just a file cabinet in your pocket.
Exactly. But staying organized over a decade and a half is vital because that 12 to 15-year lifespan is exactly what makes the relationship with a Border Collie so profoundly challenging and meaningful.
Because they change so much over that time.
Yes. You aren't just keeping a pet alive, you are maintaining a working partner through very distinct life stages.
Right, from a crazy puppy to a senior.
Exactly. You go from managing the frantic, rapid growth of a puppy to the intense, physically demanding prime working years, all the way into their senior years, where the body begins to slow down. But the genius-level mind remains just as sharp and demanding.
That sounds almost heartbreaking, honestly. The mind wants to go, but the body can't.
It can be. The owner has to be prepared to constantly adapt to the dog's changing physiological needs while ensuring that brilliant mind never stagnates.
We have covered incredible ground today. Let's take a breath and recap the journey we've just been on.
It's been quite a ride.
It has. We started in the rugged Scottish borders with the legacy of old hemp, examining how a demanding, unforgiving job forged a dog that operated on pure, independent logic.
Right.
We explored the modified predatory biology of their piercing eye, their incredible loophole-finding intellect that requires you to be flawlessly consistent, and the reality of housing an 8 to 10-hour working drive in a modern home without them eating your drywall.
A very real risk.
Yeah. And finally, we looked at the physical endurance and double-coated hardware that makes them a demanding 15-year commitment.
It is a profound shift in perspective from how we normally view domestic dogs.
It really is. And for you listening, this matters, because whether you are seriously considering bringing a Border Collie into your home, or you are simply fascinated by the extreme outcomes of selective breeding, understanding the mechanics of this breed forces us to respect the deep historical purpose behind animal behavior.
Absolutely.
When they nip at a heel or stare down a tennis ball, they aren't just acting out. They are doing exactly what we engineered them to do over centuries of hardship.
Which leaves us with a rather profound final thought to mull over.
Okay, what is it?
If the Border Collie's entire physical and psychological makeup was perfectly engineered over centuries for a world of sheep, freezing rain, wide-open hillsides, and 10-hour workdays.
Yeah.
How is our modern, increasingly indoor and highly sedentary human lifestyle fundamentally altering the evolutionary trajectory of these brilliant working minds?
Oh, wow.
Are we forcing a fiercely independent 19th century cognitive engine into a 21st century suburban box? And what does that friction mean for the future of the breed?
That is a fascinating question. It makes you wonder who is really having to adapt to whom.
Exactly.
Because when you bring a dog with that level of intelligence and stamina into your life, you might just find that instead of you molding a predictable pet to fit neatly into your routine, they force you to evolve to keep up with them. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.